Welcome to Season 3 of Pod Practice with Team USA player Quinn Finer, Team USA Grandmaster player Mikey Lunn, and myself, Alex Atkins. You can now find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and anywhere you listen to your podcasts. We want to keep growing the Pod Practice community, so reach out to us with your thoughts on IG and YouTube at podpractice_pod, or email us at show@podpracticepod.com. I hope you enjoyed the episode. You know, Coolman, I was like doing some introductions. Like, I was like, how am I going to introduce these people? And like with Bailey, it's easy. Like, club national champion, 2023 All-American.
I have no accolades.
Today we have a really special episode for a couple of reasons. One, because I'm running it, and that means literally anything could happen. Like, it's not going to be a typical boring pod episode. I mean, it will probably be like that typical 2-hour bullshit, but it's definitely, you know, it could be a little different. And two, because we have not one lovely guest, but two joining us who happen to be some of my best pals in the ultimate community and in the world. We have Bailey Shigley and Noah Coolman. So thanks for joining, everyone, from Seattle.
Of course. We're so
and that's
happy.
how you do an intro. First take.
That's pretty good.
Thanks, Noah.
All right, do it again.
And so should I do one more? And let's just run through a couple accolades here. Shouldn't take long, especially because Noah didn't really have any. But for Bailey, I'll start with you. 2023 All-American in college. And definitely a club national champion as well.
Did not play, but
I know you weren't playing, but like you were on the team and your team won. So, right? Like, I knew you were going to say that when I said that. So I already had my response queued up because just because you weren't playing, you were on the team that won.
Okay.
So that definitely qualifies you as a
into the team.
club national champion. And Noah, let me just read off a couple of your stats here. In only 10 games last year, which I would say you had a pretty breakout season. You had 28 assists, 25 goals with a 44 plus minus. And well over 4,000 yards.
I might have led the summit in plus minus.
I think you probably did. I know we were having, you know, there wasn't much for us to look forward to during the season, but I did enjoy our battle between trying to collect more stats throughout the season. I thought that was fun and kept me highly motivated throughout the whole year.
I was just trying to stop throwing turnovers by the end. That was my only goal.
Which definitely helps the plus minus go up.
Really
so today's going to be a really fun episode because Noah and Bailey are involved romantically as well. And so we're going to be talking about not only just ultimate, but love in ultimate and, you know, how love can thrive within our sport. And that brings me to my first question, which if there was a couples only 2v2 tournament, would you win?
Well, I can't even think of any other couples in Ultimate that were good enough to compete against us. So yeah, I would say definitely.
Yeah.
Really?
We definitely the only time we've played together is at like the winter league, indoor winter league in Colorado. And I'd say our success rate when I'm throwing to Noah is pretty high.
Right, that makes sense. I feel like most people's success rate when they throw to Noah is high, but vice versa.
Yes, exactly. But we definitely I don't know. We're pretty hard on each other. And it led to a couple of disagreements.
We are hard on each
Who's
other.
harder on who?
Probably me. I was just
You're harder on Noah.
Yell at each other on the field.
We yell at each other. So wait, is that Bailey yells at Noah?
There was a couple instances where you played with Noah. Like sometimes he doesn't move around, and it's not because he.
Wait, I'm so glad that you yell at Noah for that too.
Yeah, where he's just
good.
standing.
Yeah,
and I was marked by like a 7-foot tall guy. Who's like trapped me on the sideline, and Noah's just standing on the other side of the field, which is probably fine. I could throw it up and he's still going to get it, but our play styles.
I was looking for a resounding yes, but it seems like we're not sure if we would win.
I would say yes. Sure.
We'll set this up.
Name me like 2 other couples, and I'll tell you if we can beat both of them.
What about Malks and
Oh, for sure, yeah. Easy.
You think so?
Malks
Easy.
and Jamie, yeah. Easy.
Yeah, easy win.
All right, next one.
How big is the field?
I think it's like a mini field. It's like it's small. It's 2v2. You know what I mean? Like
enough to huck on. You have to be able to huck, right?
Yeah, I guess you can huck.
I feel like there's a couple couples that I'm not sure if are.
Me and Denny.
Me and Denny.
I
That's
think
a good one.
That would be tougher than John.
If we're on a
for
smaller
sure.
field, yeah, I think. I don't know.
We should have done this one at Valentine's Day.
For sure.
Yeah, we'll set this up. It'll be this will be the spark to our annual pod practice couples 2v2 tournament.
Valentine's tournament.
That would be really fun. This actually just reminded me of a story my dad used to tell where apparently he played a couple with his dog and they lost, but it was really close. My dad and his dog Jack played a man and a woman, and Jack completed one pass to my dad, but they lost.
For real?
Yeah, well, they realized that if they didn't let my dad throw goals to Jack, then they were really screwed because Jack is a dog and it's really tough. So if you force a Jack under the dog, like it's really tough for him to complete passes.
That's wild.
Yeah. Anyway, fun story that used to happen in Ultimate. But we'll save more of the relationship stuff for later because we have another special guest joining us later in the show, and we'll keep it secret, and it'll be like those like dating shows when like they reveal people. What's the show where they bring people on and they like get them to like, and they always like fight? You know what I'm talking about? No, Love
Jerry.
Island. Jerry.
Jerry Swinger. What was that? What was the show called?
Jerry
Swinger.
Swinger.
Jerry Swinger.
And someone's gonna say something about the guest, and then we're gonna be like, "Well, we're actually bringing them on." Anyway, let's get down to business. This has started off. No, because the intro was good. Yeah, the intro was good. One take was good. Bailey, let's start with you. Let's go ladies first here, and let's get into more Ultimate so that the people listening can learn about our lovely guests. So, Bailey, you grew up and started playing when you were really young in Seattle. What did you learn about Ultimate? What was instilled into you about the sport from playing at a young age in Seattle, where the sport is so popular?
Yeah, I would say it definitely shaped a lot of my community and like playing from a fairly early age and having like friendships surrounded in the sport, which I think people oftentimes find, later in high school or college. It also, this is such like a question I have a lot for myself is, was it the most beneficial thing to start playing from such a young age? Because it's still like a sport that's growing, and are people that get to higher levels in sports like basketball and soccer, where there just is more competition at a younger age, better Ultimate players at the club level and in their adult ages because they had these opportunities to, develop athletically.
Yeah, that is an interesting question.
So I've thought about that a lot, but I also think it definitely gave me a leg up going into college and coming into Colorado. I was like one of the more experienced players as a freshman on the team. And I feel like I'm spiraling all over the place with this question.
Did you play other sports, Billy?
What was that?
Did you play any other sports at all? Or
yeah, and I grew up playing soccer, as most kids do, and then started playing basketball end of elementary school when I also started playing Ultimate. So kind of when you get into like the late middle school, early high school age, when you're deciding what sport you want to commit to, I still played soccer fairly casually. and decided that ultimate was the sport that I wanted to commit fully to. And
Mhm.
growing up in Seattle, we kind of had the opportunity to do so because we were able to play year round. There was like Fry's, this winter club team, and then Seven Hills, my last couple years of high school. So I never really pursued soccer or basketball to my full ability, to answer that question.
What do you think, like, what are the biggest things about like the Seattle, like why is it so popular there? You know? Like why is Ultimate so big in Seattle? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, there's probably some historical answer to when it started and the earlier club teams. But why I think it's so popular, I don't know. I feel like the stereotypical ultimate player is very in line with stereotypical Seattle person.
Like, what is that?
It's like
what
kind
do
of
you
a
think that is?
hippie vibe, like, I don't know, free spirited,
Right.
all of that.
I feel like there's also like a lot of the geographical constraints of Seattle. If you think of like other places, it's like pretty easy in Seattle just to get to all the other high schools super easily. And having like Sockeye as such an established program to like really lead the way with Frisbee was like something to look up to like when I was a kid, and I feel like a lot of other kids look up to it. But like Revolver in San Francisco, I feel like it's just such a bigger city, like probably a little bit more spread out and harder to get around. And here it's like it feels much more condensed. It's kind of just this like lateral or vertical movement through the city, and it's easy to get to other high schools. It doesn't take a lot of resources to play Frisbee, so a lot of the community, like a lot of the people on Sockeye would help build community teams, and it doesn't take a lot to do that. So I think there was just a lot of integration from the club into the youth scene.
Yeah, the club players definitely commit very heavily to developing the youth from a middle school, high school level.
And I think like committing like having Dis Northwest as like a big like youth scene in Seattle, and like having something that's like outside of high school that brought this like collective of Frisbee players together was definitely something that is kind of unique to Seattle as well. Like I don't know that there's a lot of other programs quite like that.
Because it's a varsity sport in a lot of the schools, right? Or just I guess that's like a state thing, or like is that like a city thing? I don't know how.
It is. Yeah, I don't think
It's not?
I don't remember I think in my high school it wasn't
I thought it was
considered a varsity sport, but it was very much treated.
But it's in the schools,
one.
yeah.
I think Disc Northwest has to be a huge part of it, though. I think
so
definitely
too. It's like a huge program, and like really, I feel like at least when I was a kid, it was pretty like well operated, and like all of the best players would like play within the Disc Northwest system, and so like it kind of snowball effects like builds on itself, and like you kind of want to go play for Disc Northwest stuff because that's where the good people are playing.
And it definitely got into the schools. I remember like a while ago talking to someone from Dis Northwest and them just mentioning that they had got it into like elementary schools. And you need like coaches to, support that. But that seemed like it was like once it was into the schools and a part of like, the sports that you could select, that it just really took off from there.
Yeah,
definitely. And I think like, even, I mean, talking to people from other states, there's no like middle school like Frisbee, and like in Seattle, you're having club players like coaching middle school teams, and like that just all like builds up and like feeds up through.
When did you start playing, Noah?
I started in middle school also.
Right.
I started in middle school.
We went to the same middle school.
So
cute. Really?
Yeah.
But you didn't.
But he was 2 years older, so he was an 8th grader when I was a 6th grader.
What was Noah like? Do you have any memories of him in middle school?
We didn't really know each other super well, but I remember he was pretty. Cool. I don't know.
Yeah, I was the shit.
He was cool.
I think he would get into some trouble.
That makes sense. He still does,
Yeah.
Noah, what was it like? Because Noah moved here to Colorado a couple years ago. Like, what were the biggest differences, like culturally, playing Frisbee wise?
I think like the biggest thing for me was like all the people in Seattle that I'm really close with. Well, not all of them, but like the majority of the people I was really close with were a few years older than me. So like, Dylan and Nick and Raider and Bryce and Mitch, like they're all like a few years older than me, and DY, like spending time with them like throughout the season and just being with these people that I like really looked up to like through my
Right.
Frisbee career, and like getting to play with them and like having the opportunity to be like, become friends with these people that I'd like look up to. And then like moving to Colorado, it just like, my all of my friends in Colorado are much closer age to me, and like I almost feel like I'm kind of in the becoming like that older figure in the scene. And so I feel like it's not necessarily maybe the culture in general, but for me personally, it was like,
Yeah.
just being more around people like that are directly like my age.
Yeah,
And I
kind of like
wouldn't
the
say-
role you play on the
Yeah.
team and in the community that you're in.
Yeah, and I those are kind of the main things. But I feel like overall the two communities are really similar. Like I spent a lot of time in Seattle like playing pickup with people, and I've spent a lot of time in Colorado playing pickup with people, and then there's like this really good community in both places of just like all levels of people that I get to hang out with. And so I wouldn't say it's like too culturally different overall, and as far as the Frisbee community goes.
What about coaching in terms of like players coaching other levels of Frisbee?
Yeah, I think that Seattle,
I have thoughts on that.
I feel like it's the coaching structure. Well, if I'm going to compare like Bravo and Sockeye, I think like the coaching structure on Bravo is more like established and regimented, whereas like on Sockeye it was a little bit more captain driven.
Oh, I
Like,
meant
the
actually,
coaches-
players going to coach out in the community.
Oh,
Like, is
I think that
more prevalent in Seattle?
yeah, I think it's more prevalent in Seattle. I think it's like a really big like staple, and then also since a lot of people who grew up in Seattle still live here, they kind of want to give back to the community. I feel like there's a little bit more of a transient scene in Colorado.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So it's like Seattle, you have like a lot of homegrown people that will go back and like help out with their high school teams. And I feel like Colorado, we do have people like that, but it's a little bit more transient. Like there's more people from all over. And I feel like you kind of it's easier to lean back into the community you came from than it is to like create a new community.
Interesting.
Definitely.
That's something that I would like to see grow in Colorado, and I've never really figured out how to drive that mechanism.
But I think there's a lot of opportunity if you do really want to like go. It's just you kind of have to push yourself a little bit more to like get into the scene.
I also think another thing in Colorado is people like, and people know this, like I feel like a lot of the players are like so into like a lot of other things besides ultimate that like next on their list of things to do isn't coaching. Like they'd rather go and do,
hiking.
Whatever other hobbies that they're in too, rather than like, I know, right? It's so gross. Like, you won't find me in the mountains, dude. Definitely not. But yeah, I think that's a big part of it. Did you say you had thoughts on that, Bailey?
Yeah, I was just gonna say mostly from like the college level. I've seen a lot more crossover from like Bravo to Bird and Molly Brown to Quandary versus Sockeye. And I think in the past couple of years, there's been a couple of Sockeye players coaching Sun Dodgers, and same with now a few Riot players coaching Element. But that was the first thing I noticed when I moved and went to CU was the involvement that club players had in the college teams at Colorado, which I think is great. But also for me, at least right now, I'm helping out with Quandary a little bit. And that is, my instinct if I want to give back to the community is kind of what Noah mentioned. And,
right.
The place you came from, which can, I think, be a little bit problematic. And it probably would be better if I went and, helped out a team or community that is less established.
Right. Like, and even like, because even like Quandary, like you live in Denver, so you have to come down to Boulder.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little farther away. That's cool though. I didn't know that you were coaching Quandary.
Not coaching, but I
helping
practices.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm working in Broomfield now 2 days a week, so it makes it a lot more convenient.
Hell yeah.
So that's been fun. And also I still know people on the team and feel very connected to that community. So that's, the easiest way for me to spend my time outside of kind of what you mentioned and wanting to do the other things like skiing and hiking and getting outside during the off season.
Mm-hmm. Bailey, I wanted to ask you about, you tore your ACL a few years ago. How many years ago was that now? Do you have the date in your head?
I don't have the exact date. It was in July. It was in July of 2021.
So what was that whole experience like, and what did you learn about yourself? And as a player, what did you learn? And how did your game change from before and after the injury?
Totally. It was a horrible experience. I think anyone that's gone through big injuries like that, it's really difficult. There was a lot of factors that played into why I personally really disliked the experience. One being it was right after COVID. So we had, gotten 2 years of college taken away and things were starting to ramp back up. And I was very excited and tore my ACL. It was also my first year making Molly Brown. And I was at the second or third practice of the season, which was heartbreaking to have that experience taken away, but also you can play club forever. So looking back, it wasn't that detrimental. And then also I just had some other personal life things happen kind of within like 6 weeks of tearing my knee. So I was in a very horrible emotional state after it happened, and you kind of just have to come to terms with it. I think having COVID was great at prepping me for having your sport taken away, and open my eyes a lot to, oh shit, like I need to have other things and hobbies and find other things to get enjoyment from, because Frisbee is not going to be, around forever. Right. And a big part of that, kind of what we were talking about with coaching, I, on 2022, so I went the whole rest of the 2021 like fall national season not being super involved in quandary because I had ACL meniscus, so I wasn't super mobile for a good amount of time. I had a lot of issues with getting my full mobility back, so I was seeing really slow progress for the first couple months of my recovery. And then once the spring season came around, I slowly got more and more involved. And I was also captaining at this time. And by Northwest Challenge Nationals, end of the season, I was kind of taking on a coaching role, calling matchups for the D-line and trying to, put a lot of energy into more of the strategy side of it. And that I got so much enjoyment from, and kind of realized that, when Frisbee is no longer something I'm able to play, I definitely want to continue to coach and give back to the communities I came from. I also think that really helped develop my game. And anyone that coaches, I think, sees a similar pattern. You are seeing the game in ways that you might not as a player. And I also think it helped me become a better teammate. I hadn't faced much adversity at all as an athlete, and going through that adversity really opened my eyes to what so many other people are dealing with to, get to practice and get to tournaments all the time. That may not necessarily be physical. And it's like truly a privilege to be able to run around and do what we get to do all the time.
Yeah. And I feel like athletically you look really good right now. Like, do you work out? Have you been working out? Did you always work out a lot? Did you learn a lot about working out your body after the injury?
Yeah, I have basically since my junior year of high school, when I was trying out for the U20 Worlds team in 2018, that was a big goal of mine. And it was my first time starting to lift and go into the gym. And kind of ever since then, it's been a big part of my identity as an athlete. It's working extremely hard outside of practice. I also don't think I'm the most naturally athletic person, unlike some people. I really do have to work extremely hard outside of practice to be able to keep up and compete at the level I'm able to play. So I did not really change my work ethic and kept doing what I always do.
Speaking of natural athletes,
Yeah.
Noah, you have a real knack for making some very spectacular plays. What do you think that? What do you attribute that to?
What does that feel like? What does it feel like to be a freak?
And also, like, yeah, what does it feel like? Tell people what it feels like, because I imagine most people will never have that feeling. And two, where do you think that comes from? Like, have you always been like that? You know?
Yeah, I feel like I've always been, like the fastest kid in the class sort of vibe, like growing up and stuff, and like always.
That's why you were so cool in middle school.
Yeah,
because you were.
It started in elementary school, really.
Right?
I would always be, like I'm always out there, like being the quarterback on the blacktop with the boys, like
all-time QB.
All-time QB. It's like me and like the other kid that was good in our elementary school. That'd be like the all-time QB. That sort of vibe. And like both my parents are super athletes. Like my dad was like all-state baseball player, and then also running back, and my mom was a soccer player. So it's like kind of more genetic than anything else.
Uh-huh.
But
and your sister.
Yeah, my sister was a professional ballerina, so it's like really all I attribute it a lot to like genetics and that sort of
you
stuff.
You move a little bit like a dancer, I'd say. You got some dancer in you. I don't know if you have
his feet are crazy.
Good feet. What do you mean?
You do have fast feet.
They're like his feet are like hands.
Oh,
nice.
Like
that's sick. I want that.
Crazy mobility.
I have long toes. Really
Why do you have that? Can you spread them well?
Yeah, I can spread them well.
Ah, dude.
You're gonna have to pay for that though.
Fuck. That's so annoying, dude. Everyone wants that nowadays. I feel like that's the big thing nowadays.
I got the
foot health. I've listened yesterday. I listened to a 2.5-hour podcast about foot health, and I've listened to it before. It's my second time listening to it because it's really intriguing to me about its impact on athleticism.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Noah's a prime example.
I've talked to Maddie a lot about foot health because I ride with him all the time, and his feet are always hurting.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just like I feel like it creates a lot of stability. I just feel very.
But for you, it's just like, have you put any? It's just you just naturally like that, or like have you done little things since you were growing up to like have nice feet?
I would say no. Like I really didn't work like super hard. I used to play baseball a bunch, and like I used to be really good at baseball when I was younger in Little League and like going up through like the beginning of high school. But then as all of the people who were actually really committed like started working really hard. Like all the people that were not as good as me when I was younger, like relying on the talent, like excelled past me because they were just working harder than me, and that's something that I like didn't do like as a kid. And like you can definitely tell the difference between somebody who's working hard and who's not working hard. But like recently I've been working more, like going to the gym more, and I feel like a lot of the stuff I've been working on has been like strengthening like ankles, feet, like not necessarily trying to build like as explosive all the time, like building that explosive like energy, because that's kind of already there. It's just like being able to maintain the ability to do the explosive actions.
Mm-hmm. Right, because I imagine it takes like a toll on your body, especially the way you fly around. Like that shit hurts when you just like lay out a bunch.
Yeah, I feel like it's like it I don't know. It's not too bad, but what ends up happening is just like over the course of a tournament, like by the end of the tournament,
right,
you can really be feeling it. Like
right, like it doesn't hurt when you lay out. Like you're not like fuck that hurt, but like I know you've had some knee swelling, and I get knee swelling. Like my knee, that's how I hurt my knees, was from laying out. And so it's just you got to make sure those joints are healthy. Shout out Brian, get our joints healthy.
Yeah.
Speaking of physicality, and since you're someone who flies around a bunch on the field, what do you think? What role does physicality and contact play in ultimate? As a technically, people will call it a non-contact sport, but as we know, there's, typically a lot of contact. What's your thoughts on that?
I always feel like it's something that you kind of have to adjust for in like a game to game situation. Each team has their own level of physicality that they're comfortable with. And I think, when you get into the elite club level, people are a little bit more inclined to be physical. And I think it's like more acceptable. And you kind of come to this, middle ground with the team that you're working with. Maybe if your team is used to being a little bit more physical in practice and the other team that you're playing against isn't, like ideally they would express that to you and you can kind of like dial it back a little bit. But I think that like it's really kind of a game to game, like team to team thing that you have to establish early, like within each game. And I'm personally like very fine. Like I think physicality is definitely fine. I think that it adds like a lot of elements to the game. It makes different players better who might not be as good if they couldn't use their body in the way that they can. And I feel like it just like adds a new dimension to the game that wouldn't exist if it was just completely non-contact. It would just be more like speed and jumping. And like if you're always calling these like ticky-tacky fouls, it would get really boring to watch. So it's like, I don't know, a little bit more entertaining to have that battle. And I feel like I enjoy like, when I make a cut and somebody like slams me and I like knocked off balance, it's like a little bit more of like, oh, okay, like hell yeah, like we're getting into it sort of thing. Like we're going hard. Like I'm not.
There's some resistance.
Yeah, like I'm not just doing whatever I want.
Do you think there's a difference between the club and pro level of physicality, and do you prefer one over the other?
I think that club. Yeah, I don't think there's a huge difference. I think that there are teams that cheat with their physicality in the pro level, but it's hard to call it cheating if the refs don't call it.
Yeah, that's what we were all thinking.
I mean, we can stuff like I can throw it out there, bro. Oakland. They're a bunch of cheaters, bro. I feel like Salt.
Yeah, we don't fuck with you, Oakland.
Yeah, fuck Oakland.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, there's some guys on that team I like, but overall,
yeah, they're all right. There's a couple of them. They're all right.
Yeah. And then I feel like Salt Lake also like uses a little bit more physicality than I'm like used to in like the club level. But I think that it's really hard for me to say that that's like cheating because it's not getting called. So it's like the sport is designed in the UFA to have refs, and if the refs aren't calling something like in any other professional sport, like I wouldn't necessarily call that cheat. Like say I go up for a layup and somebody hacks me and they don't call the foul. Like I'm going to complain to the ref, but like I wouldn't necessarily say they're cheating. Like the other team is cheating.
Do you prefer one or the other? Like, do you?
Yeah, I mean, I prefer club. I think club is better. I'm just better at it. Like the field is smaller, so it's easier to be more dynamic and like more explosive. And I feel like it's just more. I've always cared more about club. Like I've never cared about the UFA in the same way that I care about club, which just because I never really like looked up to anyone.
It's newer too, yeah.
Yeah, and so that was difficult to like rationalize, especially last season. Like I feel like the first season I was kind of just along for the ride, and then last season it was like I was a little bit of a bigger part of the team, and it was hard for me to be like, oh, this is something like I really need to like take super serious because I have this responsibility to like all my teammates to like be working really hard, so I'm not letting them down because they're relying on me. But it's tough because like in my head I'm like not as bought into playing in the UFA as I am playing club, so it's like a weird like clashing mindset.
Yeah, definitely.
Bailey, what about you?
About that too with your season.
Yeah, but we won, so.
Yeah, Alpenglow. What are the differences in the leagues? Well, with WUL and club, is there a physicality difference since there are still observers and
it's the same rules and you can call fouls. So I personally think club is way more physical.
Really?
Just the spaces you're confined in, the different personnel that we get mashed up against and players that aren't necessarily playing in the WUL. Definitely think club is more physical.
And definitely club is still more meaningful to you.
I think it's different. I guess like a little tangent from that is I didn't try out for Alpenglow this year, and a big part of that is I don't know, I think I play for my teammates, and I felt like I got very close and connected to people in Alpenglow very quickly last year, and I just don't have the bandwidth to give everything I can to the pro season this year, and I chose not to play because of that. But yeah, there's parts of club and getting to do it with my college teammates specifically, and people I've like spent the last 4 years playing with. And also, yeah, winning a club national championship is something I wouldn't really consider I have done before, being on the sideline in 2022. So obviously there's a lot of passion and heart that goes into that. And
like you still feel like that's a box you want to check, even though you technically are a club champion.
Yeah, I do not feel like I have earned that. So yes. And I think there's people on the team that also haven't done it before and want to do it again.
What do you think it is about Molly Brown that keeps you all so successful year after year? Like about the culture and just the team. What are some of the things that stand out to you that make your team so successful?
I mean, I think the twins are probably up there on the list. They're just
For sure.
so hard to plan for. I think the second biggest reason that I definitely benefit from is the pipeline from Quandary to Molly Brown, getting a lot of those players coached by Claire and playing in similar systems, and also development that has happened for players through Quandary. I think Willie this past season was essentially our like center O-line handler at times, and was catching centering passes and playing lights out in some of the biggest games in anyone's career. And it's like so much of that is she's an amazing athlete, but also the coaching and development that happens on Quandary. And yeah, I would say those two.
I feel like one observation that I noticed from the season was like how committed you guys were to creating this like experience before, like in your minds of like what the event was going to be like. And you guys had so many meetings with like the whole team, like talking through all these situations and like how things were going to play out and all this different stuff. And it felt like you guys were just so prepared with like every little detail, like even like the housing and like getting to the fields and all that sort of stuff. That was just so like, it felt like you planned the whole weekend out and like had it all lined up that it was going to go the way that you wanted to. And that felt like a really like special way of treating the season like, from an outside perspective.
Yeah,
Like
that's interesting.
You couldn't be caught by surprise because you had you'd planned for all scenarios.
That's kind of what it felt like, listening to some of those Zoom calls that they had on Molly Brown, where it was like
listening to Zoom.
Eavesdropping. It's funny. It's like that reminds me of like when we had the Fury players on, just how they had the little things of making sure there was someone who was going to be doing laundry. And I know they had just like different roles like that, but I feel like, that experience and knowing what it takes and what also makes the event, more enjoyable. It just makes the team even stronger and helps you have that kind of success.
I feel like for me, it's, it takes out a lot of like the unknown things that you aren't necessarily thinking about. Like you don't know that you're worrying about them until they like become something. It's like same with like for us, not having laundry. It's like not something that I was worried about until the fact that like we weren't doing laundry. And then I was like, well, this fucking blows. So
and there you go. Noah's going to be our laundry guy next year, and he'll be folding it. And we really appreciate that, Noah.
Absolutely. Yeah, a lot of thought that goes into everything, especially coming from college to club. It's so eye-opening how mature people are and organized and thoughtful. And
Bailey, do you think, is there someone that spearheads that, or is it just baked in? Is it just that everybody's been doing it for so long and they just know what pieces need to be picked up?
we have different committees, and one of those committees is our logistics committee. For a couple years, it was just Stag, Sarah Tiger doing mostly all of it. This last year, we had 4 or 5 players that were in charge of making sure the logistics for a tournament were together, and they did an amazing job. Shout out to Emma, Meg, Blaze, and Nee were really carrying us through the season.
Nice.
Yeah, but a lot of that comes from leadership, establishing a group of people to.
How do you think you get players to step up to fill those roles? Do you have any idea, or I'm asking because I think it's something that we maybe struggled with the last couple of years, and I have a lot of theories why, but I think a lot of people would like some responsibilities to be taken care of, but don't want to do it themselves. And is that internal or external? Do you have any idea what has worked for Molly Brown to get people to want to fill those roles?
Are you talking about being in logistics or taking on the roles that they are creating for people?
I suppose, yeah, both. Just getting anybody to want to do odd jobs that are not, Frisbee things necessarily.
Yeah, I don't know. I think
Did you have an odd job, Bailey?
I mean, I was the captain last year.
Yeah, that's pretty odd.
But it's always been a pretty defined role. Someone's just always signed up and done it. And in my personal experience, it's so much more rewarding to be a part of a team when you are doing something for the team, whether that's being a captain or being a part of a strat committee or doing the logistics for a tournament. I think it's a way to connect people to each other and to the
sort
team.
of a tangent here. I have one of my theories of why maybe Bravo hasn't done it as well is because no, what you were saying earlier, the coaching staff is maybe too established. It's almost like a helicopter parent, and when nobody steps up to do something within a certain time frame, then the coaches will just do it. And I don't think that's good for the team long term in retrospect.
I've definitely observed for Quandary and Mama Bird talking to past bird captains. They'll tell me things that their coaches do. I'm like, I am doing all of that for Quandary, which is good and bad, I would say. But yeah, I think putting the responsibility on the players is better for everyone and gives the coaches a really small set of things that they have to worry about, so they're able to perfect that. And also you all have jobs and other things to do.
Yeah. Nah, there's nothing else to do.
In 2022 we had Matt Bristol was on cooler duty. He was cooler daddy.
Such a good dude. Cooler daddy.
We had a lot more fleshed out roles that people filled. So who knows?
Yeah, and I think that, anyway, I think that dynamic also, if you have sacrificed your time to be the person who's in charge of doing the laundry, that's another level of commitment that you've put in, and then you feel a sort of sense of pride and attachment to that task that you've done for the team, that I feel builds more trust between players and more trust that you can rely on somebody to do something and they'll get it done. And I think that's really important, not only for your personal buy-in, but also having other people see that you're bought in, you're doing these extra things. And I feel that was something that I felt last year where it was yeah, just like at times, it felt like people were a little bit less, bought in overall because they didn't necessarily feel as in control. But
Yeah,
or,
what'd
like,
you what'd
didn't
you
feel like
what'd you
part of it.
think, Noah? Give us some of your rundowns from post after the season. Like what went wrong? What went right? What are your biggest takeaways?
I
What's
feel
you been
like
thinking about for a couple months?
I have been a little bit more avoidant, like post nationals than I would like to be, which has been kind of a pain for me. Like recently, I've been feeling a little bit like I don't know, just bad because I haven't been like as committed to like the process as I would like to be, and I haven't really been thinking about it as much as I'd like to be. But I feel like last year it felt like it just felt like overall it didn't feel like people were in control, and they just kind of like we were just kind of going through the motions like towards the end of the season, and nobody was really like wanting to step up and like do like be there and like be present and like enjoy the moment and like be there, and like myself included. There were so many games where we'd go into the game like before the game, and I would be so like stressed about like the start of the game, and then it would be like the fifth point of the game, and I'd be like, you know what, like this is honestly pretty fun, but like by that point in the game, it was like the fifth point of the game, and I'd like finally arrived at like the moment and like been present. But like if that's the fifth point of the game, that's like I've already wasted a fifth of the whole game. So it's like, not arriving to that moment and not being present and just not feeling like I was enjoying it as much until like it was already happening, which was a really weird feeling to experience.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was like always at every game by like the fifth point, I was like, damn, like this is so fun, bro. Like I'm fucking scoring goals, like I'm getting blocks, like this is sick. But like all that lead up before the game was like just stressful, and it was like I was just like avoiding until the moment arrived.
Mm-hmm. You think that was different from past season?
Yeah, I think that was different from past seasons. But the really big thing that I was super proud of was like, when we were knocked out and put into those consolation games, like it really brought me so much happiness to see like that we really like gritted it out and like stuck together and like won those games. Because my season in 2022 on Sockeye, when we lost in the same situation, like we ended up losing to Omen for like the 13th place game.
Right.
Like very easy, like obviously like could
Yeah.
have smacked them. And
Yeah.
so yeah, that was like a really good, that made me feel really like happy and like really it made me feel proud to be like part of the team. And unfortunately like it was a little too late because we were already out, but like that was so valuable to me. And like I felt like I tried really hard physically that whole weekend, maybe not as much mentally, and then to see like all of my teammates still giving it their all like in those moments was super, super valuable.
Yeah, and sometimes you just need that slap in the face, and we got it really hard. But I agree, like, and I think that's a nice thing to take away and kind of be bringing into the future of our teams with is like, we wanted to do better, and we had a pretty good season, and we would have liked to place a lot better at nationals, but like to not tear apart at that tournament, like you said, it's so easy to do, and you've obviously experienced it with other teams. Like that is something to be proud of, even though I like
gotta
that.
lose in pre-quarters at some point,
Well, I guess so. I guess you do.
Bailey, did Molly Brown work with a mental toughness coach? Is that what I heard? Something like that?
Yeah, we worked with a sports psychologist. His name's Piers. They worked with him pretty intensely in 2022 when they won. A lot about like semifinals, because that was a hurdle that they had not gotten over, was making it past semis until that year, and then they won. We worked with him a bit last season and then only had one session with him this year, but I think it's really cool to just get a different perspective on what preparing for Ultimate looks like. and how it's, you can do all the things in the gym and at practice, but it's also really important to think about the mental side. Because I think that's where I fall off the most, is in my mental preparation, and getting really nervous and letting that prohibit me from reaching my potential and playing like myself.
What kind of things did he help, or did they help you? Like what were some of the tools that you learned?
Yeah, last year he did a lot on flow state, which I don't know if either of you are familiar with.
I mean, like, I've heard of it, but I don't really know what the fuck, like.
Yeah,
what
I'm
I
not
mean?
going to try to really explain it because I don't feel like I can do it justice, but it's essentially like there is a whole cycle to reach flow state, and flow state is like optimal performance. It's when you're, I don't know, things are kind of, you're in a trance, in those games where it's like everything is just going so well and you're so relaxed, and it's almost like you're like, for me, it feels like I'm blacking out because I'm just playing in the back of my brain and not overthinking. And getting to that state, there has to be a struggle and a release, which
Interesting.
I'm definitely, it's like, I don't know. Someone's example was when you catch a red eye and you get to a tournament and you have had no sleep and you're in the worst, physical state possible, and you just have to find that release, and then you can reach your optimum performance. And this year, peers focused a lot on. We just did this. What was it? It was like a survivor type of challenge where we were building a puzzle, and we had to work together as a team, and it was a lot about communication and what it feels like to communicate in moments of stress, and how you I don't know, lean on each other, and what you need to kind of where we want to be when we get into those moments of high stress, and the quarters and semis of nationals.
What do you mean, like where you want to be?
That's a good question. I don't know.
How you want to act?
How you want to act? Yeah.
Is it like cues, like different little like things you can?
Yeah. I'm really blanking on.
Maybe you're in a flow state right now.
I am in a flow state right now.
She's blacked out.
I'm blacked out.
You should have seen how many shots we took in tequila before this podcast. But that was crazy.
There's actually a coach, or I don't know if he's a coach. His name is Marshall Leon. I don't know how to say his last name. He's reached out to us about sports psychology, and this, now that we're talking about it, interests me even more. And just thinking about all the different ways that I could impact the team in positive and negative ways. And I think, a lot of the way I could influence the team positively is actually taking a step back. And I think actually, like everything that you've been mentioning, Bailey, about player empowerment and ownership, even if it's just not necessarily on the field, I think goes a long way in team buy-in and community and all these other things. And, I'm also thinking about, like, a few years ago, Steve Kerr, the Warriors coach, just like stopped coaching the team for a few games because he felt like his voice was not being heard. And I don't know if that's like a super interesting one in a scenario
really
where, like, the team was, like the team was very veteran at that time, so they could do it. And like I've been struggling a lot to think about the way my voice is heard and impacted, and like how the team receives it, and even like just trying to get the team to buy into things more. Like me sending more stuff out I don't think is the right solution all the time, because I do feel like it falls on deaf ears. Like, okay, here comes Mike again saying we should be fucking working out, or like, here's he saying all this stuff, but it just means so much less when it comes from the same person or the same 2 to 3 people. You know what I mean? Like, it's just so much more powerful when you own it and when you discover it. It actually, one more quick tangent. Bob Cryer, who you played for this year and is a great friend of mine and mentor of mine, he said when he had his son's name is Gray. I may have told the story on the podcast before, but he was so excited to raise Gray because he's like, I've learned all these life lessons. I know what mistakes he's going to make, and I can just lay out the plan for him and just tell him like, Gray, don't do this, do this, do this, not that. But it turns out people have to make the mistakes for themselves. They have to go through it themselves, and they don't want to be told what the right answer is. And when they are told, they're like, I get it, Dad. Like, I know what to do, even if they don't know.
But it hasn't clicked yet, for sure.
Yeah. And so, I don't know. I think that's a really interesting topic, and I do want to talk to more people.
No, it's so interesting, Mikey. I love that topic because that's like one of the hardest things I feel like I always am thinking about is like, especially in Ultimate where I want to be telling people things all the time. But it's so true. Like, you just, like, it doesn't matter if you're telling them the most beautiful truth in the entire universe, like, unless they come to that realization on their own, like, it's just not
right.
They're not going to get it. Like, they need to like form that like fucking neuro pathway themselves to like really have it driven into their head. Like, it just doesn't matter like what you tell them, And I think that's so hard because even though I like am very aware of that thought, I still find myself telling people what to do, and this is how you should do things, like, all the time. And it's also like, it feels counterintuitive, like, to let someone make a mistake and having that be the way you actually like truly care about someone is weird, because you think like, no, let me help you, let me just show you how to do this thing, and that's like me caring for you. But really there's like a deeper level of like, no, I'm just gonna let you, like, finding that balance of like, I'm just gonna let you kind of like fuck up and I'll be there and all this shit. But that's it's really interesting.
I feel like also, and speaking to like what you're saying, I feel like the ability to let somebody make their own mistakes and feeling comfortable in like trusting that, they're going to make the mistake and they're going to learn from it also like develops this kind of trust between them where you're not like telling them what to do. They're failing, but then they're like coming to the conclusions themselves, and like letting somebody be able to fail is just, I don't know, it gives you your own sense of like independence as the person who like made that mistake. Because in most of the things that I think, like, I think that I'm going to be the best at like everything before I do it. And then, like,
oh my
once
God.
I do it and I fail, I'm like, oh shit, like there are definitely people who are way better at this than I am. Like, I should probably like seek like some sort of like, knowledge from those people.
Right.
But like, before I've like tried to attempt something, in my mind, I'm like, no, like, I'm going to achieve this without even like, it's going to be no problem. Like, I'm easily going to achieve this because I have the ability to do that. And so, it's just interesting. I think everyone kind of has that own little voice in their head where they think that they know what's best for them. And it's not until like they realize that like maybe they don't know what's best that they're really going to like seek out, the knowledge that they need. But you can't tell somebody you don't know what you're talking about, because then they're going to be like,
I do
know what I'm talking. Yeah,
you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And it just becomes like a back and forth.
Yeah, Bailey, I'm curious to hear about what the culture of your teams have been like with Quandary and Molly Brown and Alpenglow. Like, with I definitely feel like in the teams that we've been involved with, that we are at our best when we are thinking about all the things people can do, and we're at our worst when we focus on the things they can't do and try to box them in. Have you, like, with Quandary and Alpenglow and Molly Brown, is that something that you've actively thought about ever?
Especially as a captain.
Yes, definitely. I think kind of being on all sides of it within all three of those teams, in a position where you're making decisions about what the team is doing strategically and just in general, and then also just being a player. I'm a big proponent of I want everyone to be in a position where they can succeed, and more than that, be in a position where they are extremely confident and feel empowered. And I think that's really, really hard to do as you get to a higher and higher level, because there's just so many people that are able to fit into all these different roles. I'll speak to Molly Brown this season and kind of talking about Bob. I think he's a coach that's so good at that and so good at giving people grace to try new things and make mistakes. And he did a great job this season and kind of working towards making Molly Brown a space where people are able to find, their superpower. I think college is a different beast because there's people coming from all these different levels. And something I think Quandary has done very well is bringing in players that have never played before and developing them into, like Sai Lostra had never played Ultimate until her first
Really?
first year
Wow,
on Quandary, and is now like one of the
crazy.
better players in the club division, and has ascended. And I think there's a couple other players that are on their path to that as well. And that is a completely different framework leadership wise and what a team like that needs versus a higher level club team.
Yeah. As a captain, like, what were some of the things you tried to do to empower, players on the team to just have more ownership and stuff? Like what kind of, like, what roles did you feel as a captain were most important for you to be focusing on? Does anything come to mind?
Yeah. I think for Quandary, I started doing captain player check-ins. So my last season on the team, I was captaining with Kenny and Cleo, and each of us took a third of the team and would check in with players multiple times throughout the season. And I think another thing we did was we had an anonymous feedback survey where people could put their thoughts in at any point in the season. I think the best thing a leader can do is give every player an avenue to give their thoughts and perspective.
Yeah.
Especially at the college level where it's so much of your life. You're playing, all 4 or 5 years all year round. And it is really important that the players are able to shape the season, but it's really hard to get everyone's perspective if there aren't these different channels for giving your thoughts and feelings.
That's so interesting. And I feel like something, all teams can work on, because you're never going to get that perfectly right. But especially like for Bravo, I think, and Summit, just something that would be very useful for us is figuring out those channels of communication. And we talked a little bit about it on some other episodes, but
yeah, I think it's very vulnerable as leaders too, because
Totally.
You're setting yourself up to get not always the best feedback. And there was times where my first reaction is like, oh, like, why does this person disagree?
Yeah.
I need to take a step back and, put myself in their shoes and understand that. Yeah.
And we're speaking about like ownership, and like, how can someone feel like they have ownership if they don't think that their thoughts are, being heard and considered by the people running the team. So yeah, it's just so important.
I mean, I feel like also, but how do you know? Like, what if somebody says some really dumb shit and then you're like,
well, yeah.
How do you like,
trust?
Well, it's back and forth. Like, you're not taking, I mean, and I've talked about this a little bit, I feel like, with Buck, but it's like, just because, let's say, you two are my captains, and I feel like I should play like every single point of the game. And that's like a real thought that I have. But you're obviously, like, for everyone's feedback, you're not going to, just because they have the feedback doesn't mean automatically that it's should be implemented. But I still, one, should be able to like voice it. And then that's where you guys would, respond with probably like a pretty easy to think out like argument as to why I should not. And then that's where the two-way street comes in of like, if I'm going to be a reasonable person on this team, I'd be like, no, yeah, like that makes sense. Maybe I don't need to play every point, And so I think you go case by case and like think about it. Because, you're going to get some feedback that really hits and you're like, oh, that's a fucking great idea. Like, that's a no-brainer. And then you're going to get some feedback and you're like, I don't know if I really agree with that, but at least you can tell them why, and they can hopefully like, you have a conversation as to why. And then at the very least, they know you thought about it, you disagree, and you can, move on.
Yeah, definitely.
You know what this seems like a great segue into? You just like this building trust and having ownership. Let's get into the nitty gritty. I feel like we haven't had a really good vulnerable episode in a while. And I just want to get deep into the weeds about relationships, ultimate, love, hate, everything, all the emotions. And with that being said, I'm going to welcome in a special guest, especially to me, a very special guest.
Oh.
Hello.
Della.
And who's this?
Introducing.
Should I introduce myself?
Yeah, you should introduce yourself, Della. First time
I'm Della.
on the pod.
First time on the pod. Kind of surprising considering this is the second season I've never been on.
It's actually
But
the
I'm
third
glad
season
to be
now.
here.
Come on, we just started the third.
Third season.
Yeah, is
I'm
it
happy to be
upsetting
here.
that Devin was on the pod so long ago and we haven't had you on the pod yet?
I kept saying that Devin's episode was my favorite episode, and I wanted more girlfriends. Well, now she's a wife. More wives, more girlfriends on the pod because I love hearing about it. And I think it would broaden your audience.
I agree with you, Della, and that's why we're doing it. So for people who don't know, Della is my girlfriend and my love, and that's why we brought her on the pod, so that we have a little comparing and contrast. We have almost all ends of the spectrum here. This is so good. We have Noah and Bailey, who are ultimate players dating. We have Della and myself, who is one ultimate player, one non-ultimate player. And we have Mikey, who's just currently not in a relationship. So we have the full spectrum of the love.
We need a single girl.
Was that a plug for Mikey?
Definitely,
Are
that's
we
a plug for
matchmaking
Mikey.
Mikey here?
Hot coach alert. Hot coach alert.
Eligible bachelorette.
That's definitely a part of this. So,
Ladies, he's single.
Put a ring on it.
Mikey, I know you're feeling super comfortable and you love that this is what's going on
the
on
fifth
the
wheel.
pod.
I actually love the topic, but I do feel a little fifth wheelie here.
You know what we were just talking about that I'm sure that Della will have some thoughts on is, Della, we were just talking about like you want to tell people what to do and you want to give them advice so that they don't make mistakes and you feel like you know how they can do things, but that really, like, a lot of the times you have to let people make mistakes and figure things out on their own. Like, from a relationship context, like, what do you think about that?
Oh, yeah. I think women especially, just because biologically we're meant to be mothers, we're controlling and we can be bossy. And I do think that a lot of the times when Alex does something that I feel like is not the way that I would do it, I have to like realize that just because it's not the way that I would do it doesn't mean that the way I do it is the correct way to do it. I'm sure Bailey can relate. And
Noah.
Noah!
Noah. If you ever hang out, if you're ever at a field complex with Bailey and Noah, you'll probably hear that being uttered at least once within a day. And that means that Noah is being annoying and needs to reel it the fuck in. And Bailey's trying to keep him in check.
Totally.
Can
That's
we just
our
get
favorite
one?
line.
Can we just get one right now, Bailey?
It has
Can
to
you?
be natural.
It has
Yeah,
to be
we have-
natural.
Noah has to do
Noah, do something
weird.
stupid that would embarrass Bailey right now while we're recording. Noah!
Can you tell the story? Can you tell the story of when you asked to go to Chili's at regionals?
Oh yeah, that was so funny. So we're at regionals and we wrapped up all our games and Molly Brown still had one more game and I was like, yeah, it'd probably be good to like go, watch Bailey like, finish out her regionals experience. But I'm like walking over there and Grant yells at me, he's like, yo, Noah, we're going to Chili's. And I was like, all right, like hell yeah, I'll go to Chili's. Like I don't need to watch Molly Brown beat this team 13-0. I go over. So I'm like, okay, let me go check in with Bailey. So I go over and like I'm waiting for them. They do their huddle. I'm like, okay, they're gonna break out of their huddle. Then they start going into their warm up, and I'm like, God damn it, I need to talk to Bailey about going to Chili's. And so they finally break out. They finally break out and like start doing their like little warm up. And I don't really have a good opportunity to go down and like talk one on one. And I just go, yo, Bailey, can I go to Chili's? She turns around and gives me the double bird. And Grant was like, I think that's a yes. And so then we just ripped over to Chili's.
Did you get Bailey anything from Chili's?
No, I did not.
Noah.
Do not want Chili's.
But I think
okay.
but I think it's funny too, like even like having her flip me off. I knew she obviously wasn't like upset with me about like anything like in particular I was saying. She was just like locked into like what she was doing, and so it was like I kind of
Yeah, she's like, get
Bailey,
the fuck out of here. I'm
Bailey, how
locked
do
in.
you
I'm
feel
about to
about
start a
that
game.
interpretation of the
Well,
situation?
at first I was like, what the heck? This is the one game you can watch. And then the team we were playing, I felt very bad. They were missing half of their roster. They had like a very small team and the game was over quite quickly. So I then texted him after. I'm like, yeah, the game was like 25 minutes long. So
Oh, that's great reflection.
it worked out.
What
Yeah,
are
and I
some
think
of the strengths? What are some of the not strengths, positives of dating a fellow ultimate player? Bailey, I'll start with you. Like, what are your favorite things about being in a relationship with an ultimate player?
I love, especially this past season, I think we both made a big commitment to throwing as much as possible. I like leading up to nationals wanted to throw every single day for a month. And it's really hard to do that, but it's really easy to do that when you're dating someone and living with someone that plays. So we had quite a few opportunities to go and work out together, throw together. Noah kind of, helped me with my defensive footwork and, thinking, and we did some field workouts together. So I love that. It's also a big development because for the 2 other years we were dating, he never wanted to work out with me or throw with me. And
Why
this
was
is
that, Noah?
very locked in.
she just works too hard, bro.
Works too hard in what?
At everything.
Noah
Really?
Were you
has a hot date with chess.com when Bailey's working out.
Were you intimidated to work out with Bailey, Noah?
I mean, yeah, I don't know if intimidated is the right word, but I think that like the way that it's like inspiring to see like how hard Bailey works, and like I feel like I can only I don't think it would take me time to like get to the level that Bailey's
Mhm.
at, and so like hopping in with her and doing the workouts that she's doing, like having not like committed to like how much time she's put in and like how committed she is to the process, it's like that shit is tough, bro. Like I go in and I'm not like, it's not like, oh yeah, like I'm a dude and I'm gonna like outlift her. It's like she's doing like 50 things in like the time that I would be doing like 6 things. So it's like,
so you are a little off put by it, though.
Yeah,
to
no,
jump
it's-
into where Bailey is.
I know she's in the deep end of the pool, bro, and I'm just splashing around in the kiddie pool.
Uh huh.
I also
Give me
think I
floaties.
came to terms with that is like going to the gym is my happy place, and the hour and a half a day I get to myself and to really like do something for myself. So I'm very okay with us not working out together. For a while I was like, oh, it would be so fun to be like a couple going to the gym together, but I'm like, actually no, I really like that alone time.
Yeah. Plus, I'm kind of a downer, so like sometimes Bailey will be wanting to work really hard, and I'll be like, "No, let's go home." And I feel like that's not a good dynamic. So it's like situations. If you don't put yourself in those situations, it's going to be healthier overall.
Mm-hmm. What about for all the people fantasizing about their future ultimate partner? What are some of the challenges to dating an
we
ultimate
never
player?
see each other in the summer.
That's not true.
We have no. I think we went on like maybe one date the whole
That's not true.
club season. It felt like it because you
But, yeah,
have
the
such
quality time
little
is limited.
free time, and I have friends outside of Frisbee that I want to see that aren't my teammates, and trying to prioritize maintaining those relationships and maintaining your relationship. It really helps that we live together. We've been great roommates, and I enjoy living with Noah a lot. And it also helps that we get to see each other, even just at the end of the day. But the quality time, goes way down during the season. I'm sure you two can relate to that as well. And for us, it's more of the like, not conflicting schedules, but he's like practicing 2 days a week, and my practices are all through the weekend. And when he's traveling for pro, it's like he's gone, at night, and But I'm sure it's fairly similar for you all as well.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Tell us about your experience.
Yeah. I think a pro is that I really like how we're both pretty committed to like health and fitness and taking care of our bodies. Like neither of us really drink, and we both, especially in the summer, Alex has morning practices on the weekends, and so it's nice to kind of have an excuse to be like, well, we can't go out because I wake up early and I work at like 5:45. So I think that's really awesome. I mean, going to Frisbee games is super fun, and I think the community is like one of the best athletic communities I've ever seen, just because growing up I was in gymnastics and volleyball, which is like people are just not nice to each other. And so I've never seen a sport where people on the other teams are looking out for each other and communicating in that way, which I also feel like reflects in our communication and our relationship, because I do feel like if he was in a sport that was like very individual and all about him, I mean, not saying that he's not, doesn't have a big ego, but he cares about his teammates. And I think that when we talk about our problems, we make an effort to be like, it's us against a problem, it's not us against each other. And I think that being a part of a team can create that as well. But yeah, I agree with Bailey. I feel like I definitely don't see him as much in the summer because I work during the day and then he has practice at night. So that can be a little bit sad, especially because like camping and doing fun stuff a lot of the times is in the summer. And I don't even remember the last time we went camping. I think when we went camping was like it was snowy because we were like, we're going on this road trip before the season starts, and we went camping on in like the Pacific Northwest. So working around the season, I think, is sometimes a challenge because of the things that I like to do, but we've worked our way around it and just do fun things more in the winter now.
What do you think about?
What are you saying, Mikey?
I was going to ask, what do you think about Alex doing the podcast, which takes up another, I don't know how many hours a week?
I mean, I love it. I think I'm going to be honest, I don't listen to a lot of episodes. I listened to the Devon one because I was really intrigued by that topic. I'm in psychology, so I feel like I love like the ins and outs of people's relationship and like to be nosy. But I think it's a good outlet for Alex. I think that it's instead of him like just playing Xbox or whatever he does downstairs in the basement, he's like connecting with you and connecting with other Frisbee folks, and I think it's been really good for him.
We do have a running joke though, of like I'll be like, we're just gonna hop on for like 30 minutes, really, and just talk about something, and then it's like 2 hours later, and maybe we're not doing whatever we said we were gonna do.
No, definitely if he's doing a podcast that day, I just am like, okay, from the moment you start the podcast, you're just out for the day, and I'm doing my own thing with the dog.
Mikey, what about for you as someone who is heavily invested into Ultimate, and I know that comes into play into some of your relationships. Like, how do you feel about that? And that balance of trying to figure it out with a partner who's not.
It's definitely a huge obstacle for sure. I mean, there's the time commitment, but I think how much I care about it and how much I invest in it is challenging for any partner, because they see the energy and time and planning that I put into these people, like basically strangers, especially to whoever I'm with. And I'm not a planner. I would say I can be romantic, but I'm not like I don't need to do activities. I don't really need to do much. So when a partner sees how much time and effort it takes to plan things out, and then me not do that in the relationship, they're like, what the fuck, dude? Mm-hmm. But I also, there have been a lot of positives out of it. I think, like what Della was saying, people do really, I think people are attracted to other people that are ambitious, that have empathy, and have passions that are not just Xbox, I guess. And
unless they're really good at Xbox.
Yeah, I mean, you could go pro gamer, but
could make a lot more money than I could in Frisbee.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I'm also at the age though where a lot of my teammates are now getting divorced. Not to say that's in either of your futures, but it's I don't know. There's just a million factors that go into a relationship and making it work. And what did you say, Noah?
Noah said 1 and 2 and looked at Bailey.
Oh,
Noah.
Two out of 2 here.
Noah, what are things that you've learned from Ultimate, and what are skills you've learned from Ultimate and being a teammate that you utilize in your relationship with Bailey?
I feel like when growing up, I played baseball as my main sport, and I was like a terrible, like I always like say that I'm like a really good teammate because I want to see like the success of all my teammates, but I'm horrible to play against because I want to win so badly that like the downfall of my enemies is like, I'm happy to see that as well. And so it's like, as a kid, I was so aggressive about like winning and being like the person who won, that would like be like just toxic to like everyone else, because if we weren't winning, I would be like a horrible person, get super upset, and just like it was not like an okay thing to happen. Like losing was not okay. And I feel like Frisbee, like the fact that you're basically forced to communicate with your opponent, and you're forced to like, build this like throughout the course of the game, you're supposed to build this sort of like all the rules with the other team. Like you guys are kind of like creating the rules like as you're playing the game. It kind of gives you a perspective like that the other person you're playing against, also wants to try their best, also wants to win like just as much as you do, and like is also just as passionate as you are. And like being able to like reconcile that as somebody else's perspective, I think, in a relationship as well. Like knowing that Bailey has things that she's so passionate about that, you know, maybe I want her to hang out with me that day, but she has something that she needs to do. Like that is just as important to her as like anything that I'm doing. And like being able to see that perspective is something that Ultimate has like really helped me out with, and like really kind of tempered my own like personal, like I feel like I just don't get quite as upset if like something isn't going my way, because I've really like taken the time to think about how other people feel and like how other people act and like what other people want. And I feel like Ultimate has been a big part of that, because you have to work with the other team and you have to be friends with the other team. And you know, there's lots of games where I don't act like I don't act spirited and it's really not intentional, but like there's so many more games where I also act like super spirited and really try to build like that vibe between the team, that we're both having a good time and like trying our best. And you know, coming from baseball where it's like, you know, I would be standing in center field like yelling at people that they're awful and can't like hit, and then like slide tackling them basically into second base, or like spitting on someone or anything like that. Like all those sorts of things are like, they're like, oh yeah, like that stuff is good. Like we want you to do that sort of stuff because that's going to help you guys win. That's not something that's acceptable in Frisbee. And I feel like that helped me mature a lot as a person, realizing like that those actions are not how you act as an adult, and like, not how your teammates want you to act. And Frisbee is, you know, something that helps found that foundation.
Did you cry a lot in like elementary school sports?
Did I what?
Cry a lot in elementary school sports?
If I lost, like if it was like a regular season Little League game, no, like it was fine. Like I would just be upset. Like there was a specific time playing Little League when I hit a pop fly to like lose the like semifinal game or best of 2 game, and my coach like ran over to my dad and was like, you need to get Noah out of here as fast as possible or he's going to get ejected and won't be able to play in the next game. And so like that's the sort of like situation, because I would just freak out so like as a
He
kid.
raged, he didn't cry.
This is why I love you so much, Noah, because I feel like, you know, we share a lot of that stuff. Like I asked that because I used to cry. Like I just remember like floor hockey, like PE, and like losing, and just it was like the most fucked thing ever to happen in my whole life. Like for some reason those events mattered so much more to me. But I also feel like that's why we get along so well, because you are one of my favorites to like compete against at practice.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I like winning. What can I say? That shit's fun, bro.
Della, what kind of questions do you have? I know this is like really your forte here.
I don't know. I feel like I want to go back to Mikey because he had a lot of interesting things to say, and I didn't know if I was allowed to ask questions, but I was interested in you know, like it seems like Frisbee is your baby, Mikey, and in relationships like it can cause some turmoil. So do you feel like in relationships you don't put in the same amount of effort as you do with Frisbee?
Ooh, I don't feel that way, but people that I've dated may disagree. So one thing that's really, really important to me is I think Noah was maybe kind of touching on this, just like supporting other people's passions is really important to me. And like, I like the way that I honestly support a partner is often by letting them do whatever they want. Like letting them, that sounds a little weird. Like not like what, go pursue something that you are really passionate about. If you need a day to relax or, you know, go mountain biking, because I don't really like to do that, something like that, like with a different group of people. I wholeheartedly support that, and it makes me happy. Effort wise though, yeah, I don't know. That's I think a tough question for me to answer. I think that I do most things wholeheartedly. When I get myself into trouble, though, is when I try to do too many things, and I often do that. So you become spread thin. So nothing, like, although I feel like I'm giving full energy to all of them, I'm sure that each, from the perspective of each, team or person or relationship in my life, they're like, where is that guy? Or like, why is he
Right.
not showing up?
Right, because for you that's enough because you have so many things going on, but for them they might not have as many things going on, and you're a bigger piece to their puzzle in terms
Right.
of what activities that they have and passions that they have.
Right. Yeah. And it's actually, I don't know, I've never really broken down the motivation behind this, but I desire a relationship where I'm not the focal point of the person's life.
Right, you're a lot more independent. You just kind of want to like do your own thing, but have each other when you both can be there for each other.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's
I
why we need to
definitely
have
see
more
that.
pods like this, because if we only talk about Frisbee all the time, particularly dude Frisbee, we're not going to have any female listeners. How are we going to match make you with someone? Like, this is
True.
clearly like the biggest audience we're going to get. Like, we're going to have more relationship pods.
I will say I've never had a desire to date someone in the Frisbee community, and I'm not 100% sure why.
You just
Because
never
maybe
found
that
one.
you like it being your own thing.
Potentially. And yeah, I don't know. There's probably a lot of reasons that it has not worked out for me to do that, at least.
Mm-hmm.
I also
Yeah,
used to coach. I also used to coach women, so that would have been pretty complicated.
That's true. I think that may be a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
I feel like also, it's get kind of sticky in the Frisbee community because everyone dates each other. And so it's like, once you've dated a few people in the community, you kind of,
Yeah.
Like,
I didn't want to say that out loud because I'm really rooting for the two of you to just stick it out,
1 and 2.
That's really
Yeah, but do you hear how he's saying it? He's really emphasizing the one, and I think the one he's talking about is like the one that stays together and makes it. And Noah's really putting emphasis on that one. He's like the one out of two, as in like him and Bailey.
Right.
That one.
They're special. And he's also attempting a wink, which I don't know if it's working.
I will say that's one thing that I enjoy about having Della as a partner, especially when we lose or things aren't going well, ultimate wise, but at all times. Like, it's nice to have just like a reprieve from the ongoings of what I perceive as the more serious part of my life. It's nice to have like a break from that every once in a while.
Because you're not really picky in the sense of you would date someone in the Frisbee community, right? Because you have.
I'll date anything,
Oh, okay.
Not picky.
That makes
at
sense.
all.
I put my water in a coffee mug because I know that like on podcasts everyone has coffee, so just making the effort here, guys.
I do have coffee in my water bottle.
I have a question for
totally reversed.
I have a question for Alex. Kind of reflecting on, obviously you have become fairly like integrated and learned a lot about the sport. And that's kind of a sacrifice you've made in your relationship. I don't know if it's necessarily a sacrifice, but Alex, what are things that you have, taken on, or hobbies that you have been introduced to through Della? And what does that look like in your relationship?
I would say it's not really a hobby. Definitely like health and wellness. Like, I've changed so much. Like, I always had like the healthy-ish side to me. Like, I think I always knew at my core I wanted to be, but it just takes a long time. Where like then being with Della, like I kind of got like strapped onto a rocket of health, and now I find myself like reading ingredients at the store and like those types of things. So it's not like a hobby, but definitely a way I've changed a lot. Also with like being a little more like, I didn't travel a lot I would only travel for ultimate. Whereas now, well, Della actually just went to Asia without me. So that's cool. But
He had to stay on watch Atlas.
That's right. But we had a couple of like trips together that if I was just, by myself, I wouldn't be going on like a trip that isn't for ultimate. And I guess Atlas as well, because although it doesn't feel like something that I like now, I enjoy it so much. But Della was the one who really wanted a dog and like prompted that. And I was a little like I always knew I wanted a dog, but I was like, I just don't know if we're ready for a dog. And Della was like, we're ready. Look how cute this dog is. And we got one. Yeah. So.
And now
Yeah.
Alex was like, now that I was gone for 2 weeks and now he's back, or now that I'm back, he will like be gone from Atlas for like 20 minutes and I'll be like, I think I have separation anxiety. We have to go home. He's not okay. We have to go home.
I love Atlas so much. I definitely do get separation anxiety. Like even now I'm like looking around for him.
Yeah, he's up here with me.
And I think, also to your question though, like, and kind of like what Mikey was talking about too, like probably the most important thing to me when I was going to like enter a relationship was just like whoever I was with knowing like right away that, and they were going to find out pretty quickly, but like I'm a fucking psychopath when it comes to ultimate, and I'm it's pretty obsessive over it. And so like this isn't gonna work unless you understand that and are also like somewhat supportive of it, because like how Mikey was talking about like allowing your partner to like pursue their things, like does a really good job of like like I don't ever feel guilty about my passion for ultimate, and like obviously it requires a lot of time and effort that I put into doing all the things ultimate related that I do. And yeah, so kind of like to your question about tying that into like the different hobbies and stuff, like I'm a little more well-rounded now. I think if you know me and you have known me since before and after I've been with Della, I'm definitely slightly more well-rounded as a person in terms of having a different perspective on the world, especially emotionally for sure. I mean, I have a really nice, like I get the perspective of a woman a lot more than I used to, and I take that into consideration a lot more. And yeah, emotionally, I'm a little bit nicer, maybe sometimes, because I've learned a lot about, being thoughtful and stuff from Della. But I don't know in like percentage of time, like I do a couple more activities that maybe are non-Frisbee related than I used to now that I'm with Della, but I still do a lot of, I don't know how much has changed in terms of like how much time I put into like ultimate and stuff.
I think you're willing though. Like we're going on a mountain bike trip in March, and this will be the first time that Alex has really ever conquered mountain biking. So, and you were very excited to do it. Like I think that you're still excited to do other things. You like to play basketball sometimes. Like I think it would, and you have other things that motivate you and excite you. I think that Frisbee obviously is the main thing, and that's your life. But I think that the openness to other experiences is what is really important to me. Like if you were like, no, I don't want to do anything else. I'm just playing Frisbee and I don't want to travel and I don't want to go experience other cool things and like see cool stuff, I'd be like, yeah, that doesn't work for me. Because I'm always trying to find new and fun, exciting things with you. And the fact that you're open to it, within reason has been a huge highlight. And I think that's also why I'm like, for sure, like go all the way with Frisbee and have fun, because we still make sure to make the time to be with each other and be present when we are with each other and whatever we're doing.
Which is nice about having Della, because then like I do the other things, whereas like I wouldn't do anything if you weren't here.
Yeah.
One thing I want to go, Mikey.
I was going to ask if you guys go on double dates ever. I didn't even realize it.
We've gone
I don't
on
know who hangs out with you.
together.
Yeah,
What's
we
that?
like. I feel like we've been on a few. We went to the beach with Bailey's family, and then we went to the mountains with Bailey's family.
Yeah, which is usually like me and Noah on a date, and then like we're double dating with everyone else.
The
It's
bromance.
usually yeah. The romance is between Noah and Alex on those trips.
Yeah,
That's
Alex
good.
just gets me high and we hang out.
I mean, that's like we're talking about relationships, but like that's where I'm like really Noah and I's relationship like is probably the most intricate out of all of the possible ones here, because like I'll never forget like talking about first dates, like that day that Noah moved to Boulder and we biked to the fields to watch a tournament together and got high and watched some Frisbee. I think about those days very fondly. And then he moved to Denver, and it was never the
miles
same.
away.
Yeah,
Miles.
so
I
far
know.
away.
What
I
tournament
never
was
see
it?
those kids anymore.
That's very funny you bring that up too. So I remember when I did start seeing Noah, I was really hoping that you two would become friends, because I was like, there's so much at that point. Like you and I were good friends, and it's like he needs male friends in Boulder that are not like the kids in college that I'm hanging out with all the time. So yeah, it's been very fun to watch both of you bond and grow, and your friendship blossom over the years.
I have a question for. Yeah, that's. I have a question for Bailey and Noah. Do you guys feel like since dating, your most talked about conversations are about Frisbee and Frisbee related things and people, or do you feel like you have more of a diverse like palette of conversation?
That's a good question. I'd say it's probably pretty heavily dominated in not necessarily Frisbee and strategy and such, but in our relationships. And most of our friendships and like group of friends are from the ultimate community. That's kind of where a lot of conversations go. But we also really like watching football together. It's a big part of our pastime. We're playing each other this week in fantasy.
Oh yeah,
Really?
So-
Who's doing better?
Let's see.
But
Who's doing better this year so far?
Noah. Well, I'm in two. Well, we're both in two leagues, and this is the Johnny Bravo league actually that I'm in.
Nice.
And Alex, you're not.
No, I
You
don't do fantasy. I'm too diehard for the Birds. I could never root for another player on another team.
And I think another big part of our relationship is talking through our own like emotions and mental battles, and really providing different perspectives for each other. And Frisbee, takes up a fair amount of that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's definitely other things.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I mean, I feel like we don't talk too much about Frisbee as like strategy or like.
You're not
Yeah.
talking like vert stack plays.
Yeah, we're not like
Yeah.
like we're not really talking about those aspects. It's like kind of the things that are going well with it, like how we feel about it, more like the emotional side of it than the actual like tactical side of Frisbee. I feel like to have somebody that like kind of gets like where you're coming from is super nice to like. Yeah, when I talk to I've talked to my parents about Frisbee or whatever, they're like, yeah, like totally we get it, but like, they never play.
You don't get it, Mom.
Exactly. That's how
Your
I feel.
mom does get it.
No, but like it's nice to have somebody who experiences the same experiences that you have, and like there's a lot of similarities between like everybody related to Frisbee and how we all feel about it, and to have somebody there to just like really know what you're going through and really like have that similar perspective it's just super valuable to have. And I feel like that's the main like Frisbee outlet that
Mhm.
Bailey and I have. And then overall, yeah, I feel like we are. Yeah, we just kind of talk about whatever, just like
Gossip.
normal people. We're just like normal people, guys. We're just like normal people,
We
like just
gossip.
like you and
Just like normal people, but they would definitely win the couples only
we would definitely
mini
be
tournament.
Johnny.
Yeah, what was their answer to that
Two
one?
on two
Alex
for
was excited to ask you guys that.
Bailey was like pretty analytical about it. Like obviously Noah was like, yeah, we're fucking winning. And Bailey was like, well, I
feel
don't
like
know.
that-
We played
that was
Winter
the
League
best way
once.
Showcasing like our different personalities.
Yeah. Yeah. Which,
Wait.
you know,
Like-
we should all that'll have to be a bucket list thing for sure. Is like we'll all have to play in a league.
Wait, who would
sometime.
win? Us versus you two.
We would win
Us.
because I would just
I
get
told Alex I'm ready.
Della's gonna lob it up. No, but I want us. I think what would be really fun.
Wait, hold
is-
on.
I think what would be.
All right, now you're.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry,
She's
continue.
locked in.
I think what would be really fun is if we all played in like a league together and we had Della, because Della's never really like played Frisbee.
That would
think
be
it
fun.
Just be hilarious.
Play out
I
team
will admit
26.
I'm not like super competitive with other people. I'm more competitive with myself. So if like I'm shitting the bed, but I'm doing really good for myself because it's like the first time I've scored a goal or something, then I will feel very excited and happy. So I feel like that
That's
the
not okay.
contrast- I know Alex would be like lock in, and I would be like frolicking around, super happy. So I feel like our personalities in that way would clash on the field.
Del,
But I'd be
we've talked
excited.
about this. No frolicking around, super happy.
We have to go back though and ask Della a similar question. When you're around a bunch of Frisbee players and everybody's just talking about Frisbee,
Mhm.
like do you just glaze over? Do you get bored? Is it annoying? I'm always super
Yeah.
self-conscious about that when I'm around
Yeah.
people that do not play.
You know, it's funny because I think about it how I think about language. Like I'm totally down. I love hearing about Frisbee. I think I'm more like hearing about Frisbee when it's people I know. Like when it's people I don't know, I'm kind of like whatever. Like I don't. But if I hear about like Bailey or Noah or Buck or people that I have known for a long time, I feel like I'm definitely like excited to hear about it. But I don't feel as intrigued in the conversation as I'm sure that you guys do. And I also feel like going back to how it is with language, like Alex's mom speaks Spanish and I really like practicing my Spanish. So I'll practice with her, but if we're in a group of people where like other people can't speak Spanish, I make a note to be like, okay, I'm going to speak Spanish with her, but I'm also going to make sure that these other people feel included. And I feel like every time I'm in a conversation, people include me and make me also understand. Like if I don't know a person, they'll be like, this person's playing on this team. This is what we're talking about. And then I'm like, okay, I can lock in if there's context to what's going on.
So it doesn't. If they didn't do that, would it bother you? Do you think?
I don't think it wouldn't bother me at all. Like I love zoning out and being in my own little world. So I have no problem hanging out when people are talking about Frisbee. I honestly feel like I haven't been like whenever we go to like Atkins' house, it's not we don't usually talk about Frisbee. Like I feel like when I'm around the dudes, I mean Buck and Alex will talk about Frisbee, but it's my house, so I can like go and do my own thing. But besides that, I feel like I'm not in a ton of Frisbee conversations, but I don't think that you should feel bad for talking about Frisbee around Frisbee players. I think that the person who's joining in the conversation has to kind of be okay with the fact that you're surrounded by Frisbee players and they're going to talk about Frisbee. And I also feel like it's really good because I gain knowledge about the sport, and then when I go to tournaments, it's a lot more fun because like Grant, the mediocre monk guy, I heard about his book and I was really fascinated by it. And then I met him at nationals and I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. I can put your face to a name. And it was really cool for me. So I like learning about players, and I like learning about them also. Like what I think I ask Alex a lot too, like what do they do outside of Frisbee, or like what do they have a girlfriend? Where are they from?
And I'm like,
What's
I
their
don't
life
know.
like? What do
I
they do
don't
for
know.
work?
I have
And he's
no
like, I
idea.
don't know. I don't know any of that.
I don't know where they are in their lives.
It's such a boy thing, though.
I know. To not ask questions about others.
Yeah, just know the basics. Yeah, I Noah's very similar. I'm like, oh, like what is this person doing for a living? He's like, I don't know. Or if
Yeah.
like someone breaks up and I'm like, what happened? He's like, I didn't ask.
Right. I'm like, how do you not ask those questions? Like,
It's a sensitive topic, you know. They might
you like drop a bomb and then you're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's all I know. And then they like get mad at you for asking more questions, but you're like, this is like a huge deal. Like when Jarv, oh wait, is that a secret? Jarv and Claire? No, not anymore.
Not a
But
secret.
like when Jarv was gonna propose to Claire, Alex had known for like days, and we were at nationals, and Jarv was like, "We're going to Japan. Like, I think I'm gonna propose." I was like, "What? This is crazy. Let me see the ring. Where are you doing it? Show me pictures." Like, and Alex was like, "I know exactly what you guys are talking about, by the way Della's reaction is right now." And he had known for so long, and I was so mad at him because that's something that I care about. Like,
Totally. The attention to detail.
Della, which team do you like more, Summit or Bravo?
I think I really like watching Summit because it's kind of an event. Like, it's really fun. There's a halftime show. There's a lot of people there. It's one game, and it's usually like Golden's really pretty, so I like going up there, and I can invite my friends, invite my mom, my family. Whereas I feel like Bravo tournaments are a little bit harder because it's like you don't know, like especially, you know, you don't know if you're making it to the semis. So if you invite, like if I invite my family, I'm like, they may be playing Saturday, but I don't know if they're playing Saturday. So just keep your Saturday open. Whereas like some games like Friday night, 6 p.m., we're all going. It's a fun time. We can get dinner after, and it's pretty. So I think for that reason, I like Summit, and because more of your games are filmed. So I can, like, when we were long distance, I could watch all your games, and that was really fun for me because I never saw you, so I could still watch you play Frisbee. So I think in that sense, I like Summit, but I know a lot more guys on the Bravo team. So, like, when I go to Bravo games, you know, I can hang out with the girls on the sidelines, and then I also can, like, talk to the guys more and like more rooting for them. So it's a hard one, but I think game wise, Summit's fun.
I feel like that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, this was really, really, really nice, and we'll have to do this again to really broaden our audience. And you know, if there is that one female listener out there, you know, that's interested in Mikey, definitely reach out. Instagram, emails in the description. We would love to set something up.
I also found out that you get $2,000 an episode if you're on 90 Day Fiance. So we could do something like that where we set him up with someone. They go on 90 Day Fiance. We all get famous, and then
Wait, what's that?
it's where you like. It's literally the show where you have someone who you're dating. Usually they're from another country, so we maybe
Okay.
have to find you someone
can
from
do that.
another Frisbee team, like
Basically,
in
all over the
Colombia.
Yeah.
And
Ooh, Colombia.
they like, yeah, they like haven't met each other in person. So yeah, a cute Colombian girl. But they haven't met each other in person, so they're like, you know, long distance. You're FaceTiming, you're texting, you're talking about meeting each other's families, and then you like get there, and you
all
have
filmed?
to get. It's all filmed. You have to get engaged within 90 days, and then if
You
you don't,
have to get. Oh, okay. So like they're seeing if you're gonna get engaged in 90 days.
Mhm. Yeah,
Otherwise,
All right,
you break
so
up.
that's a good idea.
yeah.
I'm
So
down.
just ponder that. Like, come back to me on that.
That would be
one.
really good
We'll think
publicity
about
for the
that.
pod if you're down, Mikey.
True. Mikey can like slyly have the pod practice stickers on his laptop when they're filming a pod during one of the episodes.
Hey, if you find me a Colombian woman, I'm interested.
I think,
Oh, okay. You hear it here first, folks.
folks. Well, that was lovely. I forgot to mention it during the beginning of the pod, but if you've made it this far, make sure you check out Noah be skying on Instagram for some sick highlight plays of Noah be skying people.
Is that his new Instagram handle?
Yeah, that's Noah's
tag it.
Frisbee account. No, I meant to ask you, like,
Oh.
what's the inspiration behind that? You just because I love it, and it's such a good. I love commenting on every post. Such great content. Have you gotten some good traction there?
Yeah, I felt like I just kind of wanted to, like, I don't know, show like who I was as a person, like have a little bit more of an outlet about, you know, who I was as a player and what I'm doing. And like I feel like a lot of the Frisbee content that people are putting out there is really focused on like how can you throw a better forehand, or like how can you make this cut, or like how can you do this thing, like more of like a teaching kind of element. And this was kind of more of just like the experience and like you know who I am, and not, I don't want to like impose any like ideas onto anyone. I just wanted to like be myself and like have people, and if people found value in like, you know, following me and like seeing what the process and like seeing that, like, you know, I'm just like basically everyone else, you know, I wake up in the morning, I go to the bathroom, I eat breakfast, I drink coffee, you know, all that sort of stuff. Like,
You ever post about that?
no, but I'm saying like that's sort of
No, but
Can
it
you
helps.
vlog your morning?
Yeah.
Wait, I want to see
morning
a
routine.
morning
There's
vlog by
nothing-
Noah.
Day in the life. No,
It's like wake up,
Life with Noah.
drink coffee within 3 minutes of being up. Like you walk to the table.
Don't
There's
speak to
coffee.
anyone.
Don't speak
Yeah.
to anyone. Just say yes to the question of do you want coffee? Get it immediately, and then we're ripping the rest
Yeah.
of the day.
Not a morning person.
No, but I love that, no, and I think that's a really good idea, especially like the not telling people what to do, because like, yeah, you definitely shouldn't be telling people how to throw a flick, like 100%. But I love what you're doing with that.
Yeah. And I
No,
think like,
I'll come film you. I'll come film you.
I mean,
We
that would
live
be
close.
I think like the big thing for me, like the hardest hurdle was just like, you know, putting content out about yourself, like, and just like
Yeah.
putting yourself like in front of like other people and like letting them determine whether or not that's valuable for them.
Totally.
And
Putting yourself out there, man.
it's just something like, it's just another, like, I feel like if nobody watched, it wouldn't matter. Like, it's not really about anybody else. And so like if people find value in that without me like forcing the value on them, like that's enough for me.
I know what you mean. I have those ebbs and flows. It's like a manic bipolar feeling. Some days I feel really good about it, and other days I
Yeah.
just feel a ton of anxiety.
Yeah, and the days I feel good about it, I send like 5 videos to the training Slack of me doing
I feel like
random
I've really
things.
fallen off recently, unfortunately, which like it's just part of like a habit thing, but and also like being not.
Well, there's
in
no
this-
content. It's the off season, you know.
Yeah, I mean
Off-season
that's just an
content.
excuse, though. I feel like even going into nationals, like I could have taken a lot. I could have been more involved in like showing, you know, what nationals is like
Yeah.
from my perspective, and I kind of avoided that.
Right.
But overall, it was just more like I was just experimenting, see if people are interested. I didn't know I would have followers. Now I have like 600 followers, so it's like
Oh, okay.
Like, it goes. It's just like, I mean, it's like simple things like this, like, and just like showing that you can do something and then like having the results like show up is just something that's really important for me. And like being somebody that like does things and like, you know, has some commitment and like actually attempts to like try something is like really valuable. Like so many people can talk about like how they want to do something, but it's like being able to actually do it, I find to be like such an important skill. And like that's something that I felt like I was practicing like with this account, where it's like, you know, so many people are like, oh, I have sick highlights I'd love to post, but it's like actually committing and like doing it like you guys are doing with the podcast. Like you guys are being
You're
consistent,
telling me, bro.
positive. Like it's just it's an important skill to have in all your areas of life. And so I feel like it's just a muscle that I like to flex in all sorts of different ways.
Live
Yeah,
your
and luckily Mikey has that skill because
I was gonna say, Mikey.
I'm
yeah.
still working on it.
He's editing. He's posting.
Mikey has the skill. I just exist in a space that Mikey allows
Mikey,
me.
I'm ready for my cute reel.
Okay. Okay. We'll make you a nice one.
What does that even mean, though?
I don't know. Well, I feel like we need to
you-
film some B-roll of you just
Della.
doing stuff with
Do
Atlas or
do the thing where she said to wait for a second and put the hoodie over with the headphones.
yeah. We'll clip that. We'll clip that.
I hope you interrupted a good thought for that too, like so you can be like, show the interruption. Wait a second, guys.
Well, this was great. Thank you for coming on, Noah and Bailey, and also Della for making your first appearance on the pod. And there will be many more. We'll have to add a more woman-friendly segment featuring Della and some other females who will broaden our listening.
I actually, I do want to offer more segments and opportunities. I would love for other podcasts to be under our umbrella, and potentially I would just put them out, edit them for you. So if anybody's Bailey and Della, if this is interesting to you, as not necessarily like you could be the hosts, or if this is something that you'd be interested in listening to,
A segment.
let us know, because
That would be fun. We'd have to think about what our
We can do a
topics
health
would
and
be.
wellness podcast.
You could
yeah,
do-
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
You don't
Like
have to
Bailey
think
could post
about
her
it.
workout, and you
Yeah.
can talk about like nutrition, especially like women and cycle syncing.
What hormones?
That would be really fun. And then we could collaborate with Pod Practice.
Think about
and
it could be it could be like a
fun.
3-episode series, and it doesn't have to be a permanent thing like we're doing. So
Yeah, whatever
Yeah.
you want to do. And that would be really fun.
That'd
can
be
do
cool. Because then also it would like draw more attention for women frisbee players, and then
Non-male.
that would also help you guys out.
And we need to capture that like partner who's not playing ultimate, like the Della
Perspective.
type. Yeah, we need to no, not the perspective. We need to get them listening, you know.
oh, I see.
We need to capture
Right, the
that.
girlfriends. We need Taylor, Mia,
Yeah, we need to get
Jada.
because it can just be like you guys like shitting on us and relating on
Oh, I'll
How
have
much
content all day then.
yeah. So lovely. Well, what a great idea being born here.
Anyways, on that note, before Della starts shitting on me,
Yes, right before Della starts shitting on me. Thanks everyone, and we'll be seeing you.
over and out.